Right now, we're going through a monumental shift in the industry because for 20 years, Battlefield and COD have been the story of the shooter genre. Others have risen and fallen, and mostly, or at least in great part, that's been because of EA trying to beat Call of Duty, right? In doing that, they almost ran Battlefield into the ground. Just look at Battlefield Hardline. Not only that, their attempts to have yearly shooters to compete with COD even led to the death of the Medal of Honor franchise. But even with all that pain and toil, it's never been a contest. Call of Duty has topped US sales charts almost every year since 2008. There are exceptions. They tend to be massive crossover hits. Hogwarts Legacy, Red Dead 2, GTA 5, games that reach audiences entirely beyond shooters. But the thing with Battlefield is it's never broken through like that. It managed to rank 4th in 2011 and 2013, and then it peaked with Battlefield 1 in 2016, where it came tantalizingly close, finishing 2nd. But who did it lose to? Well, it lost to Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, one of the franchise's weakest entries, and one that Activision bundled with Modern Warfare Remastered just to shift more copies. After that, Battlefield 2042 dropped them to 5th, and every year, articles ask whether Call of Duty will finally fall. Every year, that answer has been no, except this year, something's genuinely different. Call of Duty is struggling, reviews are harsh, player counts are down, and the reception feels like one of the weakest in years. We're seeing people around the space look at the game and say, we have a campaign, we have an endgame PvE, we have a battle royale, we have a this, we have a that. Why are people not resonating? And I would say it's often ended up feeling a little bit like slop. And while that's been going on, Electronic Arts is claiming that Battlefield 6 is the best-selling shooter of the year. Not just claiming it either, the sales figures we do have are truly staggering. Industry analyst Matt Piscatella started posting Circana's US sales data for the month of October. Battlefield 6 is not just the best-selling game of October, it's not just the best-selling shooter of the year, it's the best-selling game of this year to date. It instantly displaced Monster Hunter Wilds, and while we know Wilds absolutely fell off, it got what? 10 million sales in its first month? Absolutely gargantuan numbers, which allowed it to hold that top spot for 3 quarters this year, and of course, to actually outsell EA and Take-Two sports games. A Battlefield game has came in and beaten all of those things. And as a lifelong fan of Battlefield, that is not something that I am used to. And the franchise comparisons are staggering here. October sales alone surpassed the entire lifetime US total of Battlefield 1. You didn't hear that wrong, by the way. 1 month, October, the entire life of Battlefield 1. The previous peak of the series. I have to be honest with you, there's still a little goblin in my head saying, there's no way that's true. Now, to be clear, I do believe it is true, but that's just to really sell you on how just staggering and not normal sales like this are for the Battlefield franchise. And other comparisons only make it look stronger. So Battlefield 6 is outpacing every premium game of the last 3 years. And the last title to sell more than this game on its launch was actually 2022's Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. And that means that Battlefield just outlaunched both 2023 and 2024's Call of Duty games. It beat both of them. After 20 years of losing, they are now ahead. But you probably noticed the video's not over yet, because as it turns out, there is a little bit of a wrinkle to all of this. Now, regardless of whether you're playing, there's one thing we have in common. That's the Black Fridays here. It means it's time to do our Christmas shopping. And if you've got someone who's impossible to buy for, then today's sponsor, Novium, may just solve that problem. This is the Hover Pen. It's a precision-engineered pen that hovers at 23.5 degrees on its magnetic base. It's made of aerospace-grade aluminium. It has a beautiful weight distribution, and it just turns something mundane into a genuine piece of desk art. When you're not writing with it, it just sits there, defying gravity, with magnets. What the hell's up with them? Magic. And really everyone who sees it, remarks on it, asks about it. It's cool. And it won the Time Award for Best Innovations, I think, quite rightly. It's just so neat. But when you pick it up, it's a proper pen. It takes standard Schmidt refills, it writes beautifully, and they've got different colors. They just look so good. They're space black, starlight silver, Neptune blue, and Mars magma. And then there's the interstellar version. It's even got an authentic meteorite embedded in the tip. One that's older than Earth itself. It's pretty awesome. And then there's the Hover Pen Future with its interchangeable fountain and rollerball tips, if that's more your style. And it all comes beautifully packaged, so it is ready for gifting straight out of the box. and you can use code BELLULARNEWS for 20% off all hover pens until December 2nd. It's a brilliant chance to get your Christmas shopping done. The link is down in the description, and you get free shipping to most countries. For all those amazing numbers, we've got the best-selling shooter of the year sitting at 58% positive recent reviews over in Steam. Kinda wild, right? And look, the month since launch for this game has been busy, and basically not all of it has went that well. The major complaints run along 3 lines, where the maps are too small and feel designed for COD players, the free-to-play and live service elements are too aggressive, and the DICE are not responding to community problems fast enough. And you know what? There's truth to all of those claims. I'd say the core game is genuinely great, but it did launch surrounded by friction. On the topic of the maps, I personally do lean a little bit in that direction. I do think they need more large maps. Now, these map size complaints are likely because they overcorrected from Battlefield 2042's sprawling emptiness. That's because 2042 was supposed to be a 128-player battle royale. So that these maps are a bit more compact and action-packed may be proof that DICE learned their lesson, but just a little bit too hard. Now, the problem is that the live service model makes it tricky to address criticisms like this in any way that's fast. And that's because when you've committed to launching a battle royale and a tournament mode 2 weeks after release, that, eats dev and QA bandwidth across the board, even if it's only the Ripple Effect studio building that, it'll still mean it's hard to get things going, because all that content still needs to be integrated into the main game. There will be bottlenecks. And on top of that, having an entire season's worth of content ready to ship in the first month, well, that did mean that fixes took weeks. Things like the bloom, recoil stuff, flying about on drones powered by sledgehammers, and players didn't notice all of that. Each element became a new point of friction because Battlefield's success has also exposed one of the franchise's oldest problems. And that is, it's always had a fractured fan base, split between settings, gameplay styles, all of that. But it actually goes a bit deeper, because within a single Battlefield audience, you have got demands for distinct class identities. There's been a whole debate over locked weapon playlists, even things like naval combat, specific military hardware, massive maps that are designed for jets, metro meat grinders, esports leagues, hardcore gunplay, and of course all the meme-worthy moments like jumping out of your plane, doing a no-scope in the other dude, and then stealing his plane. Stuff like that. Now, each of those things is legitimately part of the Battlefield community that DICE wants to serve, but not all of them are compatible at the same time on the same map. But here's the thing. The traditional Battlefield community as a whole has literally never achieved sales that even resemble what we have seen here. And to be the best-selling game of 2025, you basically have to reach beyond those people. And it seems that is what they've done. Battlefield 6 can't survive on just the lifelong Battlefield fans alone. It also has to be a viable alternative to Call of Duty, whilst also reactivating those lapsed players. That doesn't mean it has to be Call of Duty, obviously, but it needs to be a viable alternative, because EA obviously wants those COD players to buy their game instead. So because of that, this is a modern shooter in the fullest sense. It is built around everything a mass audience would expect. Even UI-wise, it almost looks like a streaming service. To people perhaps like you and me who are a little bit more hardcore in our tastes, that's kind of annoying, but I think it speaks to the sort of audience they're going for. People who want to sit down at their TV and just enjoy something through a UI that they basically are familiar with. You've got that. You have seasonality, the linked free-to-play modes. All of those things come directly from the franchise that's topped the charts for 17 years. They're directly from Call of Duty. And clearly it seems to have worked, because a lot of that audience has showed up. But as we'll get to soon, it's not just the wins of Battlefield. It's very much also the losses of Call of Duty. But to hold those people, you'll need content, and you'll need it constantly. Each new drop is a chance to convert one of those free-to-play battle royalers into a payer, or to generate the press and the social coverage that'll get someone to buy the game. But the problem with a progress model that's got to work even for the free-to-plays means a lot of grinding, and players have already made it clear that grinding for guns and skins for a whole month won't be acceptable. And because of that, DICE actually responded. They reworked the challenges. And what's interesting is if we compare this to Battlefield 2042, a game that went almost 6 months without content updates, and basically that's because the whole franchise's development pipeline was being rebuilt. And eventually that worked, even for Battlefield 2042. We did some coverage about how that game's later life actually ended up being really good. Loads of people in the comments kind of said, well, I don't believe that and I don't really care. But I think what's obvious is the hard work that they put in to sort of salvage that has actually paid off with Battlefield 6. Because by contrast, a month and a half out from the game's launch, we've got 2 new maps, a battle royale, a suite of other systems, plus everything that's happened with Portal. That's a lot of stuff. And some people don't love one of those maps. I'm okay with Blackwell Fields, but yeah, Eastwood is way better. But still, there's a subset who do like those maps, and map diversity is important in a game like this. And that's for the simple reason that Battlefield 6 is trying to hold all of the capture points at once. And commercially, it seems they've actually succeeded. But all of that comes at a cost. There are things Battlefield Studios simply can't fix in a month, not with a live service schedule breathing down their necks. They can't just throw out a new map in response to complaints. But I will say the post-launch trajectory has been encouraging. The egregious skins that worried players actually got pulled. Even the neon green Razer collaboration was reworked. And that's a fairly big one. It's great that they can basically go to Razer and say, hey, this is too much, this is giving us blowback, and I suppose Razer could think, well, we don't want our brand to be associated with something that people don't like. So we actually got a good solution for everyone involved. And as that's happening, and as the team is settling into the content delivery, most major bugs have been tackled. We're not flying around on our hammer drones, we don't have the anti-air missile bullshit. Now in some cases, they may have overcorrected. Recoil and aim assist adjustments went a little bit too far, and yeah, they came down too hard in Portal's XP farming whilst they were solving their challenge grind issues. But each of those overcorrections has been walked back and adjusted. And for what it's worth, when we went digging around social media, it became clear that the devs are way more open about what's coming, even including them talking about map size considerations. But despite doing all of this, despite doing everything possible to appeal to as many people as possible, they are still not Call of Duty. Turns out Call of Duty is not dead yet, even though it is absolutely lying down and bleeding out, in need of a revive. Yeah, for COD the vibes, I think have never been worse. I was there for Call of Duty Ghosts, but I think the dooming I'm seeing is probably stronger this time around. When we take a look at Steam, we see the concurrent player numbers are trending down, and of course, COD is played on Battle.net on PC. That might mitigate things a little bit, but the direction is clear. And yet, look at this. Circana's player engagement tracker for the week ending November 5th shows Call of Duty HQ back at the #1 spot by weekly active users, whilst Battlefield 6 has actually dropped in the console rankings. Though if you take a look at their Steam tracker, we actually see Battlefield is still doing really well. It still is at the top spot. And that's fairly big because it's not exactly an apples to apples comparison. These games launched fairly far apart, so this is Battlefield, yes, with seasonal stuff happening, but it's Battlefield fighting the launch of a new Call of Duty. But it's still clear the raw player base is there for COD. Now, the reviews are harsh, and those reviews will matter, even if it's only for word of mouth. And when you look at the direct sales comparisons, I think the picture gets a little bit more stark. So take a look at this, and hey, if you're a lifelong Battlefield fan, maybe this is your time to just, have a pint and drink to its success. So, in Europe, digital and physical launch sales for Battlefield ran 63% higher than COD. That is according to The Game Business. Now remember, those Circana player tracker numbers were just, for the week ending November 15th, which is obviously not a like-for-like comparison. So, the Battlefield was 63% higher than COD in Europe. Well, that's pretty damn big. Now, factor in, of course, that a chunk of COD's sales will actually not really be sales. They'll rather be Game Pass on console and PC rather than a full purchase, but still, you do see a massive sales gap. And yet, COD may still outsell Battlefield by year's end. You see, Ampere Analysis found that across all 3 platforms, 4.5 million COD players had played Battlefield 6 in the previous weeks, which is actually more than half of what Electronic Arts reported selling in launch week. So, from all of this, we can glean that sheer size still does matter, and Call of Duty is available on PS4 and Xbox One, along with their massive install bases. That still will matter. But of course, if you're a Battlefield fan, you may look at that and think, oh, so we launched on less consoles and we still have more sales? Yeah, feels pretty good. But what we see is that Call of Duty's 17 years of dominance and the infrastructure and the habits that that's all built, it's not collapsed in one bad cycle. but if these issues keep on happening, maybe it will. If that's the case, Microsoft may not be that happy. And if Microsoft aren't that happy with their margin, well, we know what that means for Xbox. So, Battlefield and EA have basically got within touching distance of something people thought was basically impossible. For the first time in 20 years, Battlefield may actually outsell COD, but in doing so, they have proved it's, in a way, because they're becoming a little bit more like Call of Duty. Or maybe, at least, a little bit more like what Call of Duty used to be for people like me. The big question, though, is how Activision responds. Whenever Battlefield 2042 flopped as hard as it did, they clearly went back to basics, and they emphasized quality. Now, I don't think that came across in the campaign, but it's a core Battlefield that basically is brilliant at many of the Battlefield things. The question then with Call of Duty is, will they be willing to do that? Will they be willing to change their dev cycle so that the games actually get more time? So that they can compete against Battlefield with actual quality rather than just a endless torrent of slop machine? That'll be the big question. Now, to do the right thing, which would be to take time and ensure that Call of Duty is on target, well, they're going to have to give up some revenue. They're going to have to make some tough calls. And I don't see that being something their leadership feel like they can do with Microsoft breathing down their neck. Because even if they want to do something that's good for the long term, I think we've quite clearly seen that Microsoft are not always playing the long-term game. But you know who is? Simon and Philippe. They have actually acquired Hytale again. The game has been revived, it'll be out real soon, and you can learn all about it in this video next.